The
Gentlemen,
briefing
this
room
is a
smelled
Tier
like
1
old
operation.
coffee and authority.
Zero fail,
12
zero
Navy
footprint.
SEAls sat around
We
a
insert
steel
at
table,
midnight,
their arms
neutralize the
crossed, their
target,
eyes
and
sharp.
extract.
At the front
Any
stood
questions?
Rear Admiral Marcus Holt, a man whose chest bore more medals than most men collected in a lifetime. He had survived Fallujah, buried 4 teammates, and never once flinched at anything the world threw at him. But that Tuesday morning, something small and quiet walked through the door and changed everything he thought he knew about strength. She was barely 5'4". Her hair was pulled back in a tight knot. She wore no insignia, no uniform, just civilian clothes and a worn leather notebook tucked under her arm. The SEALs exchanged glances. One of them, a young operator named Torres, leaned over to his partner and whispered something that made the table ripple with low laughter. Admiral Holt looked up from his papers and studied her for a long moment. Then, with the easy confidence of a man who had spent 40 years in rooms where only serious people belonged, he asked the question with a half-smile on his lips. We usually start these joint briefings by having everyone introduce themselves and their call sign. I assume you have one? He said it the way people say things when they already believe the answer will be entertaining. She didn't flinch. She didn't smile back. She set her notebook down on the table, folded her hands, and looked at him with eyes that had clearly seen things they never fully recovered from. Iron Widow, she said. The laughter stopped. Admiral Holt's smile stayed frozen on his face for exactly 3 seconds before it fell away. His face went pale. He gripped the edge of the table with both hands, and the room, that hard, silent room full of the most decorated operators in the United States military, went absolutely still. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed, because Admiral Marcus Holt knew that name. He had known it for 17 years, buried beneath guilt and classified files and the kind of grief that doesn't ever really heal. It just hides. Iron Widow was the call sign of a joint intelligence operative who had gone into hostile territory in 2007 to extract a compromised SEAL unit, his unit, from a collapsing mission in northern Iraq. She had gone in alone. She had gotten them out, every single one of them. And then the building she had used as a safe corridor had been struck by an airstrike called in on bad coordinates. His coordinates. They had never recovered a body. The mission had been buried so deep in classified channels that most people involved had been told simply that the asset did not survive. Marcus Holt had carried that for 17 years. He had visited her name on a private memorial he kept in his home office. Not a plaque, not a flag, just a photograph of a woman he had never properly met, whose face he had only seen once through grainy surveillance footage. He had told himself every single year that he would find a way to make it mean something. He never had, and now she was standing in front of him. Her name, her real name, was Danielle Reyes. She had not died in that building. She had been pulled from the rubble by a local family who had no reason to help an American, and every reason not to. She had spent 8 months recovering in secret, unable to contact anyone without risking the family that had saved her. By the time she resurfaced through back channels, the mission had been sealed, her identity legally dissolved for security purposes, and the world had simply moved on without her. She had spent years rebuilding herself in silence. No recognition, no record, no acknowledgement. Just the slow and painful work of becoming whole again. She had not come to that briefing room for an apology. She had come because she had been asked to consult on a new operation, and she had agreed because the mission mattered, and because Danielle Reyes had never once in her life made a decision based on what was easy rather than what was right. Admiral Holt stood up from his chair. The SEALs watched as this man, this giant of a man who had stared down warlords and walked through firefights without flinching, walked around the table toward her with tears cutting silently down his face. He stopped in front of her. His voice, when it came, was barely audible. "I thought you were gone," he said. "I've been carrying you for 17 years. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said quietly and without anger, "I know, but I'm still here. So let's get to work." There was no dramatic music, no ceremony. Just a room full of hardened men who had to look away so no one would see them wiping their eyes. Just a woman who had survived the unsurvivable, who had never once asked the world to notice, sitting down and opening her notebook. Some people wear their strength like armor, loud and visible so everyone can see. And some people carry it like a spine, invisible, essential, holding everything else upright. Danielle Reyes was the second kind. She always had been. And in that room on that Tuesday morning, every single person finally understood what the word unbreakable actually meant.